viewers of the Stop the Destruction of the World program. I'm Claudia Pacheco, here with the psychoanalyst and founder of the Society of Integral Psychoanalysis, Norberto Cappi. Every week we have the purposeful task of bringing consciousness to our viewers that the world is in very dire straits. Catastrophes, hunger, injustice, violence are all around us. And all this is happening because the human being is sick. The human being isn't looking after his psychological life. He isn't looking after his feelings, his thoughts, his very evil intentions. And this is creating an inhuman society which is very difficult to live in. And this work, Dr. Cappi, is very difficult to take forward. Let me make a comparison. The sickest individual is precisely the one who needs to do analysis. He needs treatment, and yet is the one who least thinks he needs treatment. And the sicker he is, like if he is an alcoholic or addicted to drugs, if he has a serious problem, if he's dishonest, delinquent, he will rarely admit that he has problems. He will embark on a process called denial. Yet, the same thing happens in society. The sicker our society is, the more infernal our lives are. The less we human beings want to become conscious of this and admit our mistakes. We don't want to see our problems, the madness that is within each of us. It's easier to say, no, he's the crazy one. Society is crazy. It's hell. But this madness is within each one of us. It's within each one of you who are watching. We are the source of our problems, which is why conscientization is so difficult and why so many people are against it, especially those really sick ones in positions of power. They are not only sick, but also have the power and means to impede, censor, and repress. So we depend on the collaboration of educational and community channels so that we can play our part here. As you must do your part if you want our planet to have some chance of avoiding extinction.
As you were saying, Claudia, our planet is in a very difficult situation because of us. Now, consider, Will, it's not that it's the fault of each of you that we are destroying and doing everything we can to destroy. No. The situation is far more the natural, if we can use that word, consequences of the type of civilization that we have built. That is, of what we inherited from those who came before us. In this book here, Sociopathology, which I wrote mostly in Spain and in France, I present some ideas that one can say are even extremely current. So, we're going to read now. Which are the values that dominate in the world? And which are those that should predominate? Claudia is going to read, for example, some American values. In the first place, Claudia.
Firstly, personal control over the environment.
Note that present-day Americans place the human being above the environment. That is, the human being as dominating everything. This is contrary to the European outlook, which sees this issue as being something of destiny, of being a natural situation. Secondly, what do Americans think?
They always want to make changes. They believe in changes.
And the European orients more to tradition. They want to continue with what has worked out, which is a natural attitude of the continuation process.
You know, Dr. Cappi, let me give you a quick practical example. In the United States, there are sales for everything. Any product they produce is called brand new. And in European countries, they say, existing since such and such a date. That is, they give value to tradition.
Yes. Thirdly,
they want to control time, and they want to control you.
While in Europe, they want more human interaction, you see. Most everyone making the best of the situation. Fourthly,
they want equality. At least they make it appear that way.
And in Europe, they want hierarchy, social classes. That is, they accept that there is a hierarchy. For example, an individual who doesn't study can't be the same as an individual who is more learned. Or one who is wise is different from a person who isn't wise. So they're closer to reality.
However, Dr. Kepi, there is more equality in European society than in the American society. Americans say that they like individualism and privacy.
And Europeans prefer a collective well-being. They strive for all of society to have well-being, a large middle class to control things. After all, virtue is in the middle. By having a huge middle class, the country feels better, and next.
They seek self-help.
The Europeans orient themselves more with traditional issues, which they inherited from the past.
Americans seek competition.
In general, in Europe,
cooperation.
I use these examples to show that civilization today is very neurotic because of this. Because the human being thinks that today's music, for example, is superior to the classical music of the past. That rock music and this, let's say, stimulant type of music are superior. Look, I have here a well-known thinker for us to consider.
Bertrand Russell. He said, scholastics constitutes the most perfect philosophy of all humanity.
This writer passed away at almost 100 years of age. He was 99. He introduced the spirit that exists in the world today, this sort of strange spirit of competition, fighting, hardship, etc. But he said, take a look again at what he wrote. Scholastics, the medieval philosophy, which is, let's say, metaphysics, is pretty much the only correct human philosophy. But then what happened? The same situation as occurred in music occurred in philosophy, whereby we consider the current thinkers as more correct than the older ones. But scholastics, which is metaphysics, the junction between theology and philosophy, was the only correct philosophy that humanity had.
It's interesting because he was an atheist.
Exactly. Now let's see what happened to modern science.
The ruin of inductive science. First, the attempt to create a new way of thinking.
Immanuel Kant, as he was very critical, his work only consisted of criticism, thinking that pure reason is criticism of this and of that. He didn't quite understand what metaphysics was. And so he thought that metaphysics was an outdated philosophy. Other modern writers also thought that metaphysics was useless. Now, if something is correct, whether it was 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, it would be correct today and tomorrow, and 1,000 years from now. You see, something can't be correct one period of time and not correct at another. But inductive science wanted to create a new way of thinking, something that wouldn't be philosophy, wouldn't be traditional. And they ended up creating an enormous bunch of conflicting theories that have led humanity to the state it's in today. Take a look again at the diagram.
The elaboration of false argumentation.
For example, like these sects that exist nowadays, there are 600 Christian sects in the United States, not to mention the Catholics, Lutherans, Calvinism, all the Christian factions, and there are many more modern orientations. Because if a pastor becomes disenchanted with some point of orientation in a church, he goes out and creates a new one, and a new way of thinking. Of course, this doesn't only happen in churches. It also happens in philosophy and principally in science, when a scientist comes up with a new idea. And this becomes very interesting in the United States. Forests there catch fire very easily. So Bush says, it's better to burn everything, because if we don't have any more trees, we won't have any more fires. Take a look at the diagram.
Thirdly, the destruction of true reason, which is deductive. Inductive science was an attempt to superimpose delirium over what is rational.
And so anyone today who has a different way of seeing something, whether it's in academic circles, or in society, or the media, and this concept is in agreement with human neurotic desires, he's immediately accepted. Like John Maynard Keynes, who said that it's ideal for us to save money, leave it in the bank and use it for speculation. Just look at the disasters Keynes created with this. He stopped the world from developing. Instead of using money to do good, he said we should hide it and stop these funds from being used to provide well-being. We'll be right back.
The most original contemporaneous writer in the world today, says the National Scientific Research Center in France. A genuine contributor to the intellectual treasury of civilization, says former U.S. Ambassador Joseph Gauguin. For these times of uncertainty and conflict comes a work of extraordinary vision, hope, and moral clarity. Brazilian psychoanalyst and social scientist Norberto Keppe writes with wisdom and authority about the things that really matter. How to heal illness, how inverted science is leading the destruction of nature, and what to do about it. Finding spirituality within, structuring a truly just society. There are more than 3,000 books published worldwide every day. None are more important than these. The books of Norberto Keppe. Trilogical Science, leading us to a new world.
A gente pode constatar que está ocorrendo uma decadência na saúde porque está havendo uma queda na imunidade. Mas por que ocorre isso? Por causa da questão do estresse. E o que é o estresse em si? A pessoa não querer lidar com seus problemas interiores, achar que tudo está fora. Então isso cria o quê? Uma barreira assim, na consciência, na conscientização disso, que faz ocorrer essa perda, né, da resistência, que vai levar a pessoa a ter viroses, câncer, o que mais? Cardiopatias. E tem-se a falsa ilusão de que através dos medicamentos se pode curar. Agora, nós temos que considerar que o medicamento já é um tipo de uma epidemia, porque está causando muitas mortes. Então, o que a gente pode notar é o seguinte, que a gente tem que ir sempre na causa do problema, para poder ocorrer um aumento da imunidade e o próprio corpo se cercear e ter condições de se manter em equilíbrio.
So, Dr. Ademar has participated a number of times in the meetings of our triological psychosomatic group. He has also been doing analysis with you for a number of years and followed your work, so he already has a very clear idea of what psychosomatic medicine is all about. He is able to avoid doing the amount of harm to his clients that medicine does. Dr. Kepi, let me use HIV as an example. There is a big discussion today among scientists, including Nobel winners, that HIV is not caused by a virus or retrovirus. Our research finds this too. HIV is the result of stress, of a breakdown in the person's immune system. These days, doctors work as promoters for the drug companies. They prescribe AZT for children, even if they test negative. These children and newly born babies of positive mothers or fathers are given these medications, which as often as not kill them. For example, the use of antibiotics. If a person is going to have a simple dental surgery, the first thing the dentist prescribes is antibiotics to prevent future problems. But antibiotics create a lot of side effects. I remember many cases of pregnant women going to their gynecologist and receiving prescriptions for sleeping pills to prevent anxiety. Well, these sleeping pills cause enormous harm to the mother and fetus. Another example, women who are approaching menopause are given artificial estrogens, which we know are very harmful and frequently cause breast cancer. They say they stop osteoporosis. What they term preventative treatment is in reality something harmful for people who, due to lack of information, become victims of it.
It seems to be like some kind of a bad joke. To avoid any breast-related problems, some doctors recommend cutting off the breast. How dangerous. Of course, if there are no breasts, there won't be any breast problems.
They do hysterectomies, Dr. Kepi, to prevent colon cancer. They explain, well, the uterus is only a muscle, so they eliminate it. If there's no organ there, there can be no disease. They also do this a lot with the thyroid gland. If it presents any problems at all, they say, I'll take it out, then so as to prevent possible cancer.
This is an example of thinking that good causes harm. We see this in dentistry also. The wisdom teeth, for example, those 4 teeth in the back. They think they are too much for one mouth, so they take them out while we are young so that they won't create problems later on. And this is how a completely erroneous science works. Instead of preserving what already exists, it tries to change things. Behind this is the idea that the human being is superior to the Creator.
It's also a paranoia the person has of thinking that the body attacks him, and not that he attacks his own organism.
Now let's take a look at a diagram that I've put up here.
The human being in general attacks the most precious things he's lost, so as not to feel remorse for what he has done.
What I mean is that the person, in order to avoid seeing the harm he caused, he goes to the dentist, for example, and unnecessarily extracts a tooth, or goes to a doctor and unnecessarily undergoes an operation. In fact, I can say with all certainty that at least 70% of the people who go to hospital or consult a doctor don't need treatment. These are people who are addicted to this type of medical treatment and cause a lot of harm to themselves. I worked in the surgical department of a hospital with Professor Edmund Vasconcelos. And many of the people who turned up there, he passed to psychotherapy. I once showed a young man that the pain he was feeling had nothing to do with an endogen element, to anything wrong. He took x-rays, did a bunch of exams, and there wasn't anything wrong with his stomach. So in the context of psychotherapy, I asked, but what exactly are you looking for? And he said, I want to be cut. I want to be cut right here. And I told him, well, it's easy to take your stomach out, and then what? This pain you are feeling, which has no physical reason for existing, will just turn up in another organ. Well, society is like this. Take a look at the diagram.
Influence in the psychological life. You say that 70% of the influence in the person's psychological life arises from the environment, society, family, and country.
Yes, from the social group.
20% is a spiritual influence, and 10% is genetic.
So look, this genetic part, or let's say the physical part, is the least important part. Everything doesn't come, let's say, from birth, from what is hereditary. And this is the opposite of the idea that society has. So let's take a look at this sentence.
The human being has everything he needs within him to make him happy.
What is going on is that the human being doesn't want to live with what he is. You see, if we feel this or that pain, it's due to the psychological. Of course, it's much more difficult to see the psychological part, that the person hates another and wants to hit so-and-so, or that he's not happy with what he earns with his work, you see. All of this causes physical pain. If he takes this pain to a surgeon, of course, he'll take it to the operating table, and the surgeon will open him up. Let's see what's going on here. There's nothing wrong with the organ, or if there is, it's a consequence of a psychological attitude. So what would be the correct conduct for humanity? Take a look at the diagram.
First, politicians should serve the people.
And isn't it the contrary that happens? Everyone wants to enter government to be served by the people, to earn more, to have more prestige, and they think that by having a position of power, they know everything and can do everything. Look, just picture the world being led by one individual called George Bush. He determines what the world has to do. And what capacity does he have to do this? Well, even in a family, isn't there always a boss who determines everything? Bush doesn't have the means, the capacity, or the balance to do this, but he does it anyway. Look in second place.
The entrepreneurs should enrich the people.
And not themselves. They should work for the good of the people. I'm talking about this, of course. Some people will get mad at me. Now, I don't mean to say that an entrepreneur can't also earn more than those he directs. Of course, he is an entrepreneur. But the point is that if he enriches the people, he enriches himself. If he impoverishes the people, who is he going to sell his stuff to if the people aren't able to afford it?
Funny that one of the principles of capitalism is that the person who gets rich is going to enrich the people. And it's exactly the opposite.
It's the opposite. From Adam Smith, a very malefic individual for the world. In third place,
the economists should study ways to improve the richness of humanity.
And not enrich the groups that are in power. If the group that is in power gets rich, the people down below are going to get crazy angry. They say, how come? They are taking what is ours. So a struggle begins, and thus the tremendous social issues and the religious clergy.
They should achieve the kingdom of God for humanity.
As Kant said, instead of creating the kingdom of God for God and humans, the clergy created for themselves. No, not only the religious do this. All people want to create a kingdom for themselves and for their families at most.
Even if it's a very small kingdom, at least it's his.
Take a journalist. Once he joins the media, see what his colleagues say.
The journalist should help the human being by telling the truth. That is the conduct of love, of other-centrism. It's man's true function.
Why do journalists normally don't tell the truth? Because they'll be fired. Of course, in reality, journalists work for the powerful people and institutions, or something else that tries to take everything to benefit itself. So, to end this program, I'm going to leave you with two very important sentences. Look, the first.
The human being's interior is
that
internal.
all the good that you do is eternal, and the evil you do is ephemeral.
The kingdom of goodness will come, whether human beings accept it or not.
Our hope is that even though we will pass through a more or less terrible time, in the end, it is the more powerful who will be victorious. That is to say, God Himself. He's the owner of everything, and He's going to win.
See you.